If this homeowner had bought a standard shingle for his 5,000 square foot roof, it would have cost him right about $29,300. But if he had paid for an upgraded shingle, like a salesman wanted him to, it would have cost him about $36,800. So that's a $7,500 upgrade. So is upgrading your roof worth it, or is it just a waste of money? Now, when I talk about a standard shingle, I'm not talking about a cheap shingle like a 3-tab shingle. Virtually nobody uses 3-tab shingles anymore. I'm also not talking about like a cheap dimensional shingle, like maybe an Owens Corning Oak Ridge or a Tamco Heritage. Those shingles are not only cheap financially, but they're made cheaply as well. That's why builders tend to be the ones using them. So by a standard shingle, I'm talking about the types of shingles that a reputable roofer would normally use on a re-roof project, something like maybe an Owens Corning Duration or a Certainty Landmark. So here's some of the advantages for you as a homeowner to use a standard shingle as opposed to upgrading to a premium shingle. Obviously, the biggest advantage is the cost. The standard shingles cost much less than the premium shingles, as we've already seen. The reason for that normally is because the standard shingles are typically lighter and thinner. There's less material in them. And since they're typically lighter and thinner, they're easier to work with, so the labor cost oftentimes isn't going to be as high either. So a standard shingle is a great choice if you live somewhere that is in like a mild, temperate climate, somewhere that doesn't get a lot of severe weather. That's a great time to use a standard shingle. Also, if you don't intend to stay in the house for very long, if you plan to move soon, that's also a great situation to use a standard shingle. In my opinion, it doesn't really make any sense to pay extra for a premium shingle if you know you're not going to stay in the house for very long. But here's some of the disadvantages to the standard shingle. Remember, I said that they're typically going to be thinner, so that's less asphalt in those shingles. So that means that they're probably not going to stand up to the more severe weather like a thicker, heavier shingle is going to be, especially when we're talking about hail. Another issue that I found with some of the standard shingles is oftentimes the seal strip just doesn't work that great, which means that high winds can take off a few or sometimes even a lot of shingles. Another issue that we've seen, especially on the builder grade shingles, but even sometimes on some of the standard shingles, is premature granule loss. So it can happen that a shingle can lose the granules that are on the surface of the shingle. Then the shingle itself is going to age faster than it should. So then how do I define a premium shingle? Well, a premium shingle is usually 2 steps up from like a builder grade or 1 step up from a standard shingle. For example, GAF sells what I would consider to be a builder grade shingle, which is called their Timberline Natural Shadow. But then you can go 1 step up to their standard shingle, and that's called the Timberline HD. But then another step up from that to what would be their premium shingle is called their Timberline Ultra HD. Another example is Certainty has their standard shingle called a Landmark, and then you can step up from that to what's considered a premium shingle called their Landmark Pro. In my opinion, the biggest difference between the standard shingles and the premium shingles is what I said before, is that the premium shingles, they're thicker, they're heavier, they have more asphalt in them. So conventional wisdom would say more asphalt, more material in the shingle, better protection. But conventional wisdom also dictates that if there's more material in the product, then the cost is going to be higher. And that's true. So why do roofers push premium shingles? Well, I'm going to give you some of the reasons that they do, but I'm also going to give you some of the reasons that getting a premium shingle might actually be a good idea for you. So the main reason that a roofer might try to sell you a premium shingle is actually pretty obvious. It costs more. So more cost to you means more revenue for the roofer. And if you're dealing with a salesman for the roofing company that is on commission, then that means that the higher the job cost, the more commission that he's going to make. Another kind of dirty little secret in the roofing industry is that all shingle manufacturers give kickbacks to roofing contractors. I mean, contractor sales incentives. And the more expensive that the products are that they're selling to you, the homeowner, the higher the kickback is. I mean, the contractor sales incentive. It might actually be that selling you a premium shingle, a more expensive roofing system, helps the roofer more than it ends up helping you. But when is it going to be worth it for you as a homeowner to actually invest in a premium shingle? Well, let's talk about that. One of the main reasons that you might want to or need to invest in a premium shingle is if you live in an area that is controlled by an HOA and they dictate how heavy the roofing material needs to be that you're putting on your roof. Therefore, a premium shingle might be what you end up having to buy because the weight meets the requirements from your HOA. Also, if you plan on living in your house for a long time, if this is your forever home, it might make sense for you to invest in a more premium shingle, one that costs more, one that's heavier, one that might have a greater life expectancy. And oftentimes, the premium shingles may come with a longer warranty period from the manufacturer than the standard shingles do. So if that's something that's important to you, then you may want to consider a premium shingle. But now let's examine the return on investment potential for you as the homeowner if you were to buy a premium shingle. So in the example that I gave you of this house, the cost difference between the premium shingle and the standard shingle is about 26%. That means that it's about 26% more for the premium shingle than it is for the standard shingle. So if we were to expect then that the standard shingle would last 30 years, then that would mean that the homeowner who upgraded to the premium shingle would need to expect that he's going to get roughly another 8 years of life out of that shingle to make his money back on his investment. So then the question for you would be, can you see yourself living in your home for 38 years? That's what you're going to need to do to see the return on investment on that premium shingle. So as I look at things from a return on investment perspective, I rarely see a situation where it makes sense for a homeowner to spend that extra several $1,000s to get the premium shingle, especially if it's not his forever home. Most people move every 5 to 7 years on average. So if that's you, buying a premium shingle probably doesn't make any sense. Or if you live in an area that gets a lot of severe weather, especially like hail, that's also probably not a good situation to spend extra money for a premium shingle if you're going to end up having to replace it because of a weather event. So having said that, here's a situation where I think that it actually does make sense to invest in an upgraded shingle. If you live in an area that gets lots of hail, then investing in an impact resistant shingle is going to make financial sense for you. And let me break that down. So if you've invested in an impact resistant shingle, which is an upgraded shingle, it costs more than a standard shingle typically, then if you have a hailstorm and that impact resistant shingle survived the hailstorm and prevented you from having to file another claim, then you just saved the deductible payment that you would have to make. And most people now have deductibles that are $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 or more. So if you don't have to file an insurance claim, you just saved yourself potentially several $1,000s in paying a deductible. But the other big reason for using an impact resistant shingle is that a lot of insurance companies will give you discounts on your insurance rates if you have one. I know one insurance company gives 24% discount. One insurance company gives 28% discount. There's even companies that give up to 40% discounts for an impact resistant shingle being on your roof. So if you spend a few $1,000s or several $1,000s extra to buy a premium shingle, that's a cost that you have to bear that you never get back. But if you spend a couple thousand or maybe a few $1,000s to upgrade to an impact resistant shingle, then you're actually making money every year because of the discount you're getting on your insurance rates. And again, if you don't file a claim, you just paid yourself back that deductible payment. So should you upgrade to one of these premium shingles that I talked about before? Well, that's really kind of a personal decision that you're going to have to make. But in my opinion, in most cases, the answer is no. And that's because in most cases, you're going to have to come out of pocket for a few thousand or maybe even several $1,000s. And that's not money you're ever going to make back. So if you want to know what my favorite impact resistant shingle is, then watch that video up there. And if you need some information on how to choose a roofer, watch that playlist down there.